Well, I'm home now, and I think I can talk about this. Let's talk about this passport right here. This passport, this very passport, well, it almost caused me to lose. It almost caused me to lose $10,000. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with a story time, here with a cautionary tale, here with a warning about traveling with a passport and how I almost lost $10,000. And look, straight off the jump, $10,000 is a lot of money. I spent $10,000 on an airplane flight, and honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do that without my partnership with YouTube. I wouldn't have been able to do that without the crowdfunding that you guys do through Patreon, through Super Chats, and I certainly wouldn't have been able to do that without the sponsors that we have on this channel. Before we get into this big old story time, I need to make some more money so that I can keep taking these trips. So let's take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's show, Scentbird. Scentbird, the fragrance subscription service with a mission to empower each and every one of us to express ourselves through scent. And man, it's a super helpful service for travelers because it gives you your fragrance in a very travel-sized container. Each and every month, you get to pick out a fragrance of your choice, and it is sent to you in this Scentbird dispenser. A very easy-to-use dispenser. All you do is twist it and spritz it. Here's a quick look at the cologne outside the dispenser. Nice, the full vial, 30 days worth of cologne. It really opens up the world of fragrance for you, allowing you to try higher end perfumes and colognes that you may be priced out of. Scentbird carries the brands like Prada and Gucci and Versace, and independent brands like Confessions of a Rebel and Heretic and Skylar. Scentbird lets you choose a new designer fragrance every month for just $17. You pick out the fragrance, there is no surprises. And look, you can try this for even less than $17 a month. Use my coupon code LaLidoLoca55 for 55% off at Scentbird.com. Brings your first month down to just a little over $7. This offer only available in the United States and Canada. The two fragrances that I'm trying out this month, of course, is the Maker's Stag, and then I also have Sugarful. The Maker's Stag, it's kind of masculine, it's woodsy, it's even got patchouli in it, and then Sugarful sits on the other side of that fragrance spectrum. It comes off a little sweet, it's got some iced grapefruit in it, it's got some black licorice. It's cool to have options, and it's cool to have options for, not the premium price that comes with buying a full bottle of cologne. Thank you, Scentbird, for sponsoring today's episode. Now let me set the stage. Back in November the 18th, 2022, I got an email from a PR company that represents Holland America Line with an invitation for a bucket list cruise. The bucket list cruise was leaving from Sydney, Australia, and it was a cruise around the ports of New Zealand. Honestly, it was a cruise I could not refuse, but there were some hurdles in place making this cruise a challenge for me. The first hurdle was I just re-enrolled in my doctorate program, going back to school. I stopped working on my doctorate to do YouTube full-time a couple years ago, and the timing seemed really good to jump back into the doctorate program, and I essentially cleared my schedule. I'm traveling less this year so that I could get reinvigorated when it comes to getting the next level of my education. And well, one of the components of my doctorate program is a residency, an on-site residency, a 3-day residency where we all go on site, we meet the learners that we'll be working with, our cohort, we integrate ourselves into the university life, we work with our professors, and that residency is an integral part of this program that I'm in. And well, unfortunately, this cruise was scheduled for the exact same time of the residency. So I thought hurdle number one would be one that I could not get over, but I did work with the folks at the university, and they made it so that I was able to not participate in the residency, but still continue forward in the program. Hurdle number one, cleared. Hurdle number two was the flying to Australia. The last time I left the continent, I was even a smaller person, if you can believe that. I weighed about 100 pounds less. I flew to Asia. I flew to Shanghai, and I did that in 2 economy seats. And even in the 2 economy seats as a smaller person, as just a 297-pound person instead of a close to 400-pound person, it was taxing. It was taxing physically. It was taxing mentally. The flight from North Carolina to Los Angeles to Shanghai, it was an endeavor. But I survived it. It was great. I got to experience China. Well, here I'm looking at the same type of flight to get to Australia, this time Orlando to Los Angeles to Sydney, about 20 hours on a plane. And I knew that I would have to upgrade to business class, upgrade to first class to make this flight. And well, that's what I did. We talked about it. Thankful for the sponsorship, thankful for the partnership with YouTube, thankful for the folks that support us through Patreon and through Super Chats. And I was able to make that flight. So hurdle number 2 was cleared. Then I was left with hurdle number 3, which is this passport. So if you've been a passport holder for any period of time, you know that there comes an end to your passport's life cycle, an expiration date. And well, this passport it's set to expire in April of 2023. Now, if you've traveled internationally at all, or if you've been here listening to the talks on this channel, you know that there are some countries in the world that have a requirement for your passport to be valid a certain amount of time after you leave their country. There's some countries in the world that your passport has to be valid for 6 months. 6 months after you leave the country before they'll even let you in the country. And well, fortunately, Australia and New Zealand are not countries that require 6 months on your passport. Once I found that information out, I was so relieved, but I didn't find it out right away. I was very apprehensive in November, worrying about how I was going to go to Australia because my passport didn't have 6 months left on it. I signed up for online passport renewal. Very plainly, they said, look, if you're traveling in the next 6 weeks, you can't use this service. I looked into going and getting a same-day passport. They have an office in Miami that will do that. But unfortunately, you have to be traveling within the next 2 weeks to get that. The times that I was in Miami was well before 2 weeks before this cruise to Australia. So I was contemplating, do I need to drive to Miami and get an emergency passport? I looked at getting it renewed through the mail. There was no guarantee that I would get my passport back in time for this cruise. And so finally, in my research, I came across a U.S. State Department website where you can plug in the country that you are going to, and it will tell you what the passport requirements are. I'll leave that link in the description of this video, but it was awesome. I typed in Australia, and it said the only passport requirement for Australia is that your passport is valid. That was the first thing I typed in, and I was like, well, is that right? Then I typed in New Zealand, and New Zealand had a different descriptor. It said that your passport has to be valid for 90 days, for 3 months after your exit from New Zealand, which this passport was. So I was able to research and find out that I met the passport requirement for Australia, that I met the passport requirement for New Zealand, and I thought everything was copacetic until the day I went to the airport in Orlando. I was all smiles and sentimental as I waved goodbye to the lovely Jenny B. I made my way into the Delta area of departures at the Orlando airport, and I went to the kiosk to finish my check-in process. I checked in online the day before, but I did need to tag my bag so that I could give it to an agent to put on the airplane. And well, when I went to the kiosk to get my bag tag, I got flagged. I was told that I needed to go see an agent. I jumped in this line right here, this long line for priority, and eventually I made it up to the agent. I presented her with my passport and my boarding pass, and she looked at my passport, and she looked at my boarding pass, and then she looked at my passport, and then she looked at me and she said, well, we've got a problem here. Your passport does not have 6 months left on it. And I said, yeah, I know, but New Zealand and Australia, they don't require that. I checked it out. I am good to go. She looked at my passport again. She looked at me and she said, no, I don't think you can travel because your passport does not have 6 months on it. And she was pretty adamant about it. And I was getting that feeling in my stomach like, wow, she is not going to let me go any further. And I said to her again, honestly, I checked. I'm good to go to these countries. And she's like, I don't know. I don't think they're going to let you in. I don't know if I should let you on the plane. And we were kind of at an impasse. I was really starting to get worried that this whole trip that I'd planned out, the $10,000 that I'd spent on the flight, it was all I was going to be calling Jenny B to come back and get me. And I was really starting to despair. And then it hit me. I had to do one other thing before I got to the airport. I had to apply for a visa to enter Australia, and I had to apply for a visa to enter New Zealand. And that's what I said to the lady. I said, look, I've got an entry visa for Australia. I have an entry visa for New Zealand. If they weren't going to let me in the country, they would not have granted my visa. And this seemed to click with her. She's like, all right, can you show me the Australian visa? Can you show me the New Zealand visa? I was able to produce those on my phone, the digital copy. and she let me go. She let me go through. And look, that's not the end of the story. There's still a couple more things I want to tell you. I want to show you my old passport photo. You're not going to believe what this looks like. And I've done some things with my passport now to get it renewed. But as I walked away from that counter, I still don't think the lady thought that I was going to be able to get into Australia and New Zealand. I'm just thankful that they let me on the plane. And again, I didn't want to say anything about any of this until I got home. I was afraid that I was going to jinx it, but everything that I researched, everything that I saw was correct. I was able to get into Australia with no problem. I was able to get in and out of New Zealand with no problem. It all worked out the way it was supposed to work out. Now, excitingly, yesterday I was able to complete the online renewal process for my passport, and that process essentially invalidates this passport. That's why when you're doing the online renewal, they don't want you to be traveling internationally for the next 6 weeks. I do have a cruise coming up going to the Western Caribbean, but that's one of those cruises that you can cruise with your birth certificate and your state issued ID. So I'll be going and doing that. It'll be the first time ever I've cruised with my birth certificate, but I did the online renewal process. It was so easy. I was able to upload a picture. I was able to provide a payment, and I'm assuming in the next 6 weeks or so, I will get a passport and a passport card. First time ever, $238 to get another 10 years on my passport, a new passport book, and a passport card. That includes the shipping, and it was easy peasy. They've just opened up this online renewal process. You have to make a username at travel.gov to be able to do that, and your passport has to be within a few months of expiring. I think you have to be in the last year in your passport to use the online renewal process. But I thought it was golden. I got to the airport. It was a contentious 20 minutes. This passport right here, it almost caused me to lose $10,000. Do you have any crazy passport stories? Have you been denied anything? Have you had to jump through hoops to get a new passport? I would love to hear that in the comments below. And yes, I promise, let me show you my passport photo. How about that? Who is that guy? I'm so glad to be getting a new passport. Another big thanks to the sponsor of today's show, Scentbird. Without sponsors, I wouldn't be able to do this kind of travel, so thank you, Scentbird. Make sure you check out the information in the description box, the links below to get your Scentbird. Crazy times. This is Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido.